Hey, it's Mr. and Mrs. Bartz, and we serve as the directors of Student Ministries to students at the King's Academy and the King's Online Academy. Thanks so much for tuning into our chapel service online. Our intention with chapel is that the message would encourage you in your faith and teach you something new about who God is and what He has done for you.
We know that you could be new to the Christian faith, or you may be a committed follower of Jesus. But wherever you may land on the faith journey, we hope that this message encourages you. Now, let's lean in together to hear the word God has for us this week.
And hey, welcome to the first chapel of the school year. I know that we got some 7th graders that have not even been in a secondary chapel yet, so welcome to you guys. And then we got some returners, and we also have some new students that have never even been to a chapel before. So I want to welcome you guys, and you guys will get the hang of what we do in here as we go throughout the year. But as Mrs. Bartz said, my name is Mr. Bartz, and we serve as the directors of Student Ministries. And maybe you didn't know, but Mrs. Bartz and I actually started dating when we were 17 years old. Okay, we were seniors in high school, and we started off, didn't really know each other that well, and so when we started kind of celebrating anniversaries, because that's what you do when you first start dating, you celebrate like every other day, right? So it's like happy 1 week and 6 days, right? So our 6-month dating anniversary was coming up. And I felt like this was my chance to prove myself, that I was a good boyfriend. And so I decided to plan this whole day where we were going to go paddleboarding on the Intercoastal with the Jupiter Lighthouse, and then I had dinner reservations planned later at a nice restaurant. And so I had this whole day planned out. And it was going really smooth at first. We went out and borrowed some paddle boards from a buddy of mine. And we paddled out to the lighthouse, had a great time. And we're coming back, and we were going underneath that bridge right by the lighthouse. And if you've been under that bridge before, you'll know that the current there is really strong. And because the boats are going by, it can really cause some choppy waters. And so I was right in front of Mrs. Bartz, and she ended up falling off of her paddle board. She was okay, but her GoPro that she had just gotten from her grandma fell off of her paddle board and sunk down to the bottom. It didn't have one of those buoy things on it. And so it just sunk straight down to the bottom. Now, it's about 25 feet deep, and I rushed back, make sure that she's okay, like a good boyfriend would do, right? But then we both start panicking because we're like, how are we going to tell Grandma that her $400 GoPro that she got us is now at the bottom of the ocean? So I felt like, okay, this is my chance, right? I can solve this problem. I can do this. And the whole relationship depends on this, right? So I paddled back to my friend's house. I ransacked his house for goggles, paddled all the way back out to the bridge, and I spent the next 45 minutes basically free diving, trying to find this GoPro at the bottom of the ocean. And as you know, the current there is really, really strong. And so after 45 minutes, I was just exhausted. And I was defeated because we couldn't find it. She was really upset and sad, and we were wondering how we were going to tell Grandma that we lost the GoPro. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to do one last pass in the current, and let's just see what happens. So I make my way to the front of where the bridge ends, and I let the current take me, and my last pass through, I spot the GoPro. It's right in the middle of everywhere that I was searching for the last hour. And so I quick stopped myself, and I dove down to get the GoPro, and I was super dramatic about it, but I burst through the surface of the water with the GoPro in hand like I was just won the Olympics, right? And so we were all excited. The day ended up being great, but it did not exactly go to plan. And the reason why I share that story is because in life, we all have expectations. We all have plans. And more often than not, our expectations and plans don't exactly align with reality at times. Many of you guys are 7th grade, right? And you guys are entering into secondary, into middle school, and you guys had expectations and plans for what middle school was going to be like. And I'm sure if I caught up with any of you guys, those expectations and plans probably aren't the same as what is happening right now, right? It's a little bit different than what you expected. Some of you guys are brand new to Kings in general, and you thought that Kings was going to be a certain way, and it's actually panned out to be a little bit different than that, maybe for good or for bad. Some of you guys thought that the way that you would start the school year, you had all these visions over summer, right, of the first couple days of school, how your first week was going to go, and then it actually came and went, and it's totally different than what you had thought. It doesn't matter what grade you're in, doesn't matter what circumstance of life you're in, everybody has expectations, and oftentimes reality doesn't align with what we plan or what we expect to happen. This is true of a man in the Bible, in John's Gospel. It's actually a story about a man that was born blind. And we find it in John chapter 9. And it's a story of a man who was born blind. He spent his entire life sitting and begging on the streets to get money so he could eat and live. It's actually one of my favorite stories in the Bible because it depicts a story of a man who's discovering who Jesus is and who he is in light of that. And so we don't have time to read the whole story. It's a long story, but I'm going to read for you the beginning of John chapter 9. So, John chapter 9, this is verses 1 through 12. As Jesus went along, he noticed a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus said, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of the one who sent me. For night is coming, when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit in the ground, and he made some mud with his saliva. And he put the mud on the man's eyes. And he said, "Go and wash in the pool of Siloam," for this word means sent. So the man went and washed, and he came home seeing. And when his neighbors and those that had seen him begging on the street, and when they saw him, they said, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg on the street?" Some claimed that he was, but others said, "No, it only looks like him." But the man himself insisted. He said, "No, it's true. It's me." And then they asked him, they said, "Well, then how were your eyes opened?" And he said, "The man they called Jesus put some mud on my eyes. He told me to go wash at Siloam, and so I went and I washed, and then I could see." And they said, well, where is this man?" But the blind man didn't know where Jesus was. Now, that's the beginning of the story, and there's more to it, but what I want to focus on is this man's expectations of maybe what would have happened if he envisioned the day that he had his sight returned to him. I'm sure that this man had many, many times where he thought about the possibility of one day his sight could be restored to him. And at this point, Jesus is kind of somewhat of a trending topic in Jerusalem. And so I'm sure he's heard stories about this man named Jesus that can perform miracles, that bring sight to the blind. And I'm sure he's envisioned in his mind of what that day could look like, right? That maybe Jesus would just kind of touch his eyes and heal him. Or maybe Jesus would just snap his fingers and his eyes would be healed and he could see again. But what Jesus does is really, really strange, right? He approaches the man, and the next thing the man hears is, right? And Jesus kneels down and he spits in the dirt on the ground. He mixes it together and he makes this mud substance, and then to make matters worse, he puts it on the man's eyes. So put yourself in this guy's shoes. You don't know what's going on, and then you feel like a cold mud substance rubbed all over your eyes. And then Jesus instructs him to go and to wash at the pool. Now, I want to stop here for a second because it's a big question of like, what's Jesus doing with the dirt? Like, is Jesus just trying to be dramatic? Is Jesus just trying to add a little flair to the story? What's the deal with the dirt? And I think what John is trying to get us to see is that he wants us to look back to the very first book of the Bible. And it's in the very first book of the Bible that we see God himself create life from the dirt of the ground. And in this moment, Jesus is proclaiming to everyone around him and to you and I that he is a creator of life, that he's the author of life, that Jesus creates life from dirt, that he can create light from darkness. And so I know that we have lots of different stories in here. You guys are on different paths of your faith journey. Some of you would consider yourselves Christians. Others of you would say that you're still skeptical. Others of you want nothing to do with it. And so the big question is, who is this Jesus guy really, right? Like, we're going to be talking about him a lot. We're going to be talking about him every week in chapel. You're going to be hearing about him in your classes and throughout the day. And so the question is, who is this Jesus guy really? I think John chapter 9 shows us pretty clearly that Jesus is the creator of all life, that is the creator of all living things, and that he takes notice of the man on the side of the street. That the creator of life takes notice of the one that's often overlooked. This isn't just a scene between an ordinary blind man and a guy who can do some magic tricks. This is a scene between the Creator and his creation. And so what does that mean for your life? This means that Jesus takes notice of your life. Jesus notices your insecurities. He notices your fears or your worries. He notices all the things that make you you, even the things that you try to hide from your parents or from your teachers or your friends. Jesus takes notice of your life. He sees you when you're most vulnerable. He sees you when you're at your lowest. I remember a couple years ago, I had a chance to go to Costa Rica on a mission trip, and one of the projects for the day was we were going to go to a clinic where some kids were, and our instruction was very, very simple. It said, just go and spend some time with these kids. And the kids that were at this clinic suffered from severe disformities and mental handicaps. And so essentially the reason why they ended up at this clinic was that their parents, nor their friends, nor anybody else wanted them. Some of them were left in dumpsters. Some of them were left on the side of the street because they were too much to take care of. And so this clinic takes them in and tries to take care of them. And so in my mind, I'm like, I have no experience with this. I was in high school at the time. And I was thinking in my head, what am I supposed to do when we arrive? I was kind of panicking, but the caretaker at the clinic made herself very clear. She said, all you have to do is to show them attention. Just show them love. Just take notice of their life. Some of these kids have not had someone actually show them compassion and love and attention in years. And so she said, for the next few hours, it's clear. Just show them some love. And so that's what we did. And I think that's powerful because when someone takes notice of your life, it makes a difference. Some of you guys are new to Kings, and you feel like you're drowned out by the whole student body, or you feel like you're kind of lost in the weeds when it comes to, the popular kids or the ones that get all the attention. Maybe you're not even new to Kings, but you constantly feel like you're never noticed enough, like you don't stand out. And this is a reminder that Jesus takes notice of your life and that he cares about what you care about. He cares about what's going on in your life. And maybe you're on the other side of that and you would consider yourself, unbiased opinion, the popular kid, right? And you're like, you know what, Mr. Bartz, I don't really need Jesus' attention because I get enough attention on my own. And everyone knows your name, you have a lot of followers, whatever else it might be. But if you're honest with yourself, those friends are fake, the relationships are shallow, and you seek that attention only to last for a few minutes, and then you're moving on to the next thing. I remember this summer, Mrs. Bartz and I went to a Justin Bieber concert, okay? Judge me all you want, all right? It was free tickets, so we were like, hey, let's go hear some Justin Bieber, okay? So we get there, and we had never heard Justin Bieber in concert before, and I remember being in the arena when, right before J. Biebs came out of from underneath the stage, really. And the cheers and the roars and the screams in that place, I have never heard a place get so loud for one person. I was honestly shocked at what was going on. And he does his whole set and he does some great things, other things I question, dude, what are you doing? But he does this whole set, and in the meantime, people are just yelling the whole time. There's a grown man in front of us screaming, I love you, Justin Bieber, just completely humiliating himself, right? But the moment that surprised me the most was the moment he got to a song called Lonely. And in the song, he talks about how, everybody knows his name and he gets all this attention, but yet on the inside, he feels empty. On the inside, he feels lonely, like no one really cares. And as he's singing this song, people are still cheering, like they're just yelling for him. And I'm sitting there going, man, I don't think he's lying right now. I don't think he was lying when he wrote those lyrics. And it just got me thinking, how can someone have an arena of thousands of people showing him their undivided attention and love and admiration, yet he feels so lonely and he feels like no one cares? It doesn't matter how many followers you have, it doesn't matter how many so-called friends that you have or the attention that you get. The difference when Jesus takes notice of your life is that he has the power to actually transform your life. And that's the difference, is that Jesus is not too big to take notice of your life. And this is the message of the gospel, that Jesus is big enough to do something with your life, but he's intimate enough to deeply care about it. And so you might actually be sitting there going, well, Mr. Bartz, you use that term gospel. What does that even mean, right? And even if you consider yourself a Christian, you're in church, we hear that term all the time, right? What's the gospel really? How do we define it? What does it look like? Well, I think in this story, we see the gospel crystal clear. That Jesus takes notice of a man who was blind, who was powerless, and he gave him sight to see. Jesus didn't interview this man to see what he had done. He didn't question him or wonder what his resume was like. That Jesus simply gave him sight as a free gift. I think this is important because I know that we have different religions even represented in this room. And with other religions, sometimes the message goes that you ought to strive to do good. That the harder you work and the better you do in life, that maybe you will earn or be approved by the higher power, by God himself. And the gospel of Jesus Christ is actually the opposite of that. That it's not about how much you can do, it's not about what you can earn or how you deserve it. Rather, it's a free gift of grace to you. The blind man didn't have to do anything to earn Jesus' grace. He simply had to have a willing spirit. He had to have a willing spirit to recognize his own brokenness. And we do nothing to earn God's grace. And so if we're honest, we have more in common with the blind man than we realize. That we're all without sight. That we are all powerless in our own way. And this is the gospel, that you and I, that we are helpless, that we are broken, that we bring nothing to the table, and Jesus brings everything to the table. If you keep reading the story, the blind man goes into some interrogations with the Pharisees, the religious leaders, and they're questioning him, wondering how he got his sight. And at the end of it, they end up getting so fed up with him because he's not giving them what they want. And so they kick him out of the temple. And I want to read for you just the very last couple verses where we pick up. Jesus hears that the man has been kicked out of the temple. And he says this, Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshiped him. See, I think that not only do we get a picture of who Jesus is, not only do we see what the gospel is, but in this scene we actually see what salvation is. Mrs. Bartz and I, when we got married, we did a thing called the first look. If you know what that is, it's where right before the ceremony, you get like your first look at your bride. And I remember being so anxious about this moment, right? And I got so emotional, I started tearing up, And so I was standing there, and I was sweating like crazy. And they tell me when to turn around, right? And so I said, "Okay, you can turn around." I turn around, I saw her for the first time. She was beautiful. She was in her wedding gown. And in that moment, like, everything hit me at once. Like, man, that's my wife now, right? And when I finally saw her, not as my girlfriend, not as my friend, not as my fiance, but as my wife, it changed how I also saw myself too. That I'm a husband now, that I have a responsibility to her, that I vowed to be there for her, no matter what life brings, right? I think the same is true when it comes to when you finally see Jesus for who he truly is, the one that came to redeem you and take on your sin so you didn't have to. It also changes how you see yourself as well. That you are a sinner in need of saving, that you do need a rescuer. And when you get that, when you can understand and see yourself in need of that rescuing, that's when salvation happens. That's when you recognize your own powerlessness. You can't control your life, and you submit it over to God, to the one that can control it. And so who is Jesus? He's the creator of all living things that takes notice of your life. What is the gospel? It's that you and I, we deserved death, yet Jesus paid it for us to give us life. And what is salvation? It's to see ourselves as a sinner in need of saving and to offer that up to Christ. I want to close in prayer. And so I'm just going to have you guys just bow your heads, join me in prayer. And as we pray, I want you guys to just take this moment seriously. We have a lot of time to kind of, have fun and mess around, but I want you to really take this time seriously. There's an old pastor named Jack Miller. He once said that, he said, "Cheer up. You're a worse sinner than you could ever imagine, and yet you are more deeply loved than you could ever hope." And friends, that is the truth of our lives. We are more broken than we could ever imagine, but yet we are more loved than we could ever hope. And I don't know what you're going through in the beginning of school here, a lot of different feelings and worries and anxiousness. But I wanted to start off the year with an opportunity. Now, you guys know, if you guys were in chapels last year, I don't do this a whole lot. This isn't going to be in every chapel type of thing. But I couldn't pass up the very first chapel to talk about the basics of Christianity. It's the basics of the faith. I've titled the message, "Back to the Basics." Because when you actually get who Jesus is, when you actually get what the gospel is and what salvation is into your soul, everything we do in here, everything we do at the King's Academy will make sense. And it will change you and it will impact you. And so, all I want you to do is with your heads bowed and your eyes closed, and it's not about the person next to you, no one's looking around. Trust me, I'm looking, right? The only one looking around is me. I want you to think to yourself, I kind of know who this Jesus guy is. I know that the gospel is for me, but Mr. Bartz, if I'm honest, I've never actually received that for myself. I know that I'm broken, but I haven't received the free gift of grace. And if you don't know if that's you, if your heart's pounding, your palms are sweating, it maybe is, right? And so all I want you to do, if you would say, you know what, I resonate with that. All I want you to do is just look up at me. Just look up and just make eye contact with me. That's all. I just want to see your eyes, okay? If that doesn't apply to you, then just keep your head bowed. That's all. No one's looking around. I just want to see your eyes. I see you. I see you. I see you. Now, the thing I want you to do from here is I'm gonna give you the responsibility. But from here, if you would say, you know what, Mr. Bartz, I want what you're talking about. Today, not tomorrow, today, find a teacher, find me, find someone that can offer you that free gift of grace, that can pray with you, that can lead you in a way in which you recognize your own brokenness, but yet you receive the grace of God. And I want you to do it today. Because if you truly want this, then you will take the initiative on your own to come and find us so we can walk with you, so we can do this life with you. And you can do it knowing that the grace of God covers you and it's made you whole. And so if that's you, if you looked up and you looked at me, I want you to find time today to do it. Your teachers know, they're ready, they're love to talk to you. I'm ready to talk to you. But we want this to be a one-on-one thing because it's easy to get lost in the crowd here. But we want this to be a relationship. We want to be able to walk with you through this. All right, pray with me and then we'll close. Dear Lord, we give you thanks for this time together. And Lord, I pray that these students, this whole entire year, would experience your love and your grace, that it would overwhelm them, and God, that they would see you for who you truly are, the Son of God who came to redeem us, to give us life and a life more abundantly. I pray that over each one of these students. And God, we ask this all in your holy and matchless name. Amen. Amen. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us. If you heard something that you have questions about or you'd like to know more about, feel free to contact us via email, and we'd love to connect with you.
We would also love to pray for you and encourage you in your faith, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again for watching, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day.